Hello and welcome to the demo on the switch activity. In this demo, we'll learn how to use the switch activity in our workflows. The switch activity allows us to select one out of multiple choices based on the value of a specified expression. This activity can be useful when categorizing data according to a custom number of cases. For example, storing data into multiple spreadsheets or sorting through names of employees. Let's consider the following business case. We have the Invoices folder that contains invoices from the last 4 years. We want to sort the invoices in different folders, one for each year. The last 4 digits in the file name indicate the year. To solve this scenario, we'll create a workflow that gets all of the files from the corresponding folder and loops through the files using a for each activity. It then checks the last 4 characters of the file name and moves the files accordingly. Let's do this. First, we'll create a new sequence. Name it Switch Sequence to Group Invoices. And add an annotation. Then we'll save the Invoices folder path to a variable. We'll add an assign activity. And create the new string variable in the To field. Let's call it Invoices Directory. In the Value field, we'll add the relative folder path which contains the invoices, all invoices. Next, we'll add a for each activity to loop through every file. Now at this moment, the type argument for the for each activity is set to object. But we'll change it to string because of the file paths. To get the individual file paths in the All Invoices folder, we'll use the directory.getFiles method. This returns the names of the files that meet the specified criteria. In our case, we'll write the following expression, directory.getFiles, and provide the folder path in the form of the Invoices Directory variable. The output of this expression is a collection of strings representing file paths. We'll also change the item name to invoice. We'll provide the body of the for each activity with a descriptive name. Alright, we want to get a file info object for each invoice. This type contains information about a file, including its name, size, and type. We'll use it later to move each file to its specified folder. To do this, we need to declare the variable of file info type, instantiate the object, and assign the object to the variable. We'll add an assign activity. Then we'll press Ctrl+K to create a new variable. Let's call it file. Currently, it's of string type, but we'll change it to file info shortly. This variable will be a file info of each item that we get from the directory. To instantiate the object, we'll use the new file info expression and provide the invoice file path as the argument. We see that there's an error which states that we need to change file to system.io.fileinfo. This is because we cannot assign a file info object to a variable of type string. To solve this, let's go to the variable panel. Select Variable Type, browse for types. Search for File Info and select system.io.fileinfo. Perfect! Now that we have the information about our file, it's time to get the file name. This file name is the short name of the file without the extension. To do this, we'll use a second assign activity. And create a new variable called file name. To get the file name, we'll use the displayed expression. Let's unpack this. The name property of a file info object returns the name of the file, which is a string. The substring method lets us output a segment of a string by providing a starting index and the length of the selection. The starting index is 0, but what does it mean that the length is expressed as last index of .c? This expression returns the index of the first character in the last occurrence of the string provided as an argument. In our case, the argument we provided contains only one character, the dot. So, this expression will return the index of the last dot in the file name. The C indicates that we're working with a character. Altogether, this expression returns the file name without the extension. Next, it's time to use our switch activity. We'll use it to move the files to the correct folder, based on the last 4 characters of the substring that we've just extracted. We'll start by checking which year is present in our file name. To do that, let's get our file name and use the substring method to check the last 4 characters in our string. We'll use filename.substring and provide the parameter filename.length -4. This means that our starting index is 4 characters before the end of the string, and the length is whatever is left. Notice the error that we get. This is because we must change the type argument from int32 to the type that we're using, string. Great! Next, we'll set the behavior for the cases. Let's start with the default case, the one where the input doesn't match any of the other cases, and then proceed to set a different case for each year. For the default case, let's add a message box stating the name of the file and that it doesn't match the expected format. Let's enter the text as follows. The file plus file name plus is not named as expected. In brackets ending with a year. For each of the other cases, we'll set the value of the substring in the case value input field. Then add a move file activity to move the invoice to the designated folder. It's important to remember that the case input field is the only place where quotation marks are not used to write strings. We'll need the full path of our existing invoice. Let's enter file.fullname in the path input field. As you can see, file.fullname is different from file.name. File.fullname contains the full path, while file.name contains only the short name of the file. Now all that's left to do is to add the destination path. To do this, we'll add the specific year folder to the invoice directory. Next, let's create a case for each other type of invoice that we have. Then copy the move file activity and change the destination folder. It's time to see what we've got. Let's save and run our process. And let's check the folders. The Invoices folder is now empty, and we have the 4 folders containing the invoices with the same year as the folder name. Great! And this is how we build a switch in a sequence project. It's good to know that we can also use switches in flowchart workflows. This workflow follows the same logic as the sequence. The flow switch is right here, and the 4 cases connected to the move file activities. Here's the default case and its message box. As a general practice, we'd recommend using a sequence as it's easier to read and implement. As a short recap, we learned how to use the switch activity in sequence and flowchart. The switch activity executes a single case in the collection based on its match with the conditional expression. If the condition doesn't match any of the cases, the default one is executed. We can use the switch activity instead of an if activity to test the condition against at least 3 or more cases. For more practice on this topic, try to use the switch activity to find the grade of a student based on the score in a subject. And that's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching.